and welcome to Journeys and Journals. I'm Bernie Martin Beck, and when I start looking into history, my favorite way is to talk to people who've lived it, whose moms and grandmas have told them stories about it, and I have a guest today who has brought pictures that you won't believe. I'll have you meet. This is Dorothy Hile. But you got married, Dorothy.
I did, but I didn't change it much.
Okay, and your name is Dorothy Hile?
Hile.
Hile. Try to say that real fast, okay?
Dorothy Hile.
Okay. And Dorothy, where did you meet this Mr. Hile?
In Medford.
Okay, what was he doing over there?
Well, I was working in a hospital, and he was a builder.
And we've got a picture of him here. Because he'd come through the war, did I understand?
No, he was not in the war. They wouldn't have him.
There's got to be a story there.
There is.
It was a bad foot?
No, it was a bad side. He had a ruptured appendix, and they left a clamp in his side. And when they were doing a pre-military physical, they found it and wouldn't have him.
And wouldn't take it out?
No, but it worked its way out.
And you're a nurse?
No, I didn't even know him then.
Uh-oh. Now,
It all happened before my time.
Now we're talking this guy.
That guy.
What took him to Medford? Do you know that story?
Yeah, it was going home. He grew up in the Ashland area. His folks had a homestead up on the hills on the Greensprings, and then they eventually moved down into Ashland.
Did you ever go to that homestead?
Tried to one time and slid off the road.
Oh.
It was too far back in the woods, and it was too wet when the time we tried to get there, so I never did get back to it.
So his history goes way back to, when was homesteading done down here?
Well, they came from Vermont to California in 1919. He was born in 1918. And then they came from San Diego up to Oregon. But they would go back every winter for several years.
Yeah, lots of people went back during the winters, kind of make a buck because there wasn't any way to keep body and soul together up here during those early...
Well, it was, up in the mountains off from the Greensprings, that you couldn't live up there in the winter.
No, you couldn't grow anything, you couldn't even get out. No. Probably school was impossible.
Well, he did go to school from up there. He couldn't remember when he started going to school up there, but he said that he walked, I forget how many miles, out to the highway to catch a bus that went down to Ashland.
And so, did he graduate from Ashland High? Or?
No, he went to junior high there, had the appendix problem, and then he'd missed so much school that year, he went back to California by himself. By that time he was 17. And so he went to California, finished school in Santa Ana.
And is that where he learned his life's career?
No, he came back to Ashland a couple years, 3 years later, and his father had been a builder and a mechanic and whatnot. By that time, though, he was blind and not doing anything.
The dad was blind.
Right.
And they were off the homestead.
They were off the homestead, bought a place in Ashland, and they had a bunch more kids. Hugh was the oldest.
How many kids?
6.
Oh, dear.
No, 7. 7, and he was an only child for 6 years.
So do you know about how to get up the Greensprings? Did he ever tell you stories about living up there?
Oh, yeah.
Well, tell me.
Well, it's really hard because it's bits and pieces. He didn't care anything about family history, so it was like pulling teeth to get him to tell you anything. It's past. He wasn't interested.
What he was interested with was finding you and a mother for his 5 little children who'd been...
And when his father died, he, and we had been married about 3-4 years then, he inherited a Bible that had been given to his grandparents when they got married. And he just put it up and never looked at it. And I was busy with babies and didn't look at it either until about 15, 20 years ago. I decided to have a look at it. And his grandmother had put all kinds of bits and pieces of paper in there with notes about various people in their family. So he didn't know anything about his East Coast relatives. And his mother would talk to him a little bit, but he wasn't interested. So
I understand. Men sometimes...
Just, my dad was like that. He didn't care. But
even though your dad had this valuable pioneer blood in him that had come in 1847...
Not my dad. My dad's family came out later, after the Civil War. That's Mom's family that came in 1847.
Okay, and they're the Lees?
They're the Lees.
And Dad's family?
Well, of course, his name was Hall, and his father came out from Illinois in the late 1890s. I forget which year.
A real latecomer to the West.
Yeah, as far and my grandmother's folks though came in. Let's see. Her father was in the Confederate Army.
Oh yes, you're a Southerner.
I guess. Anyway, he was enlisted in Missouri, got out in Texas, and they came from Texas to Oregon. He already had some family out in Missouri Flat. And so...
what do you know about Missouri Flat?
Not much.
I mean, it must have been a whole group of people from Missouri.
There were, and lots of them were kin to each other. You read about them, and
kin means related, folks.
and I don't know them, not acquainted with any of them, but they are kin.
And they're Halls.
No, they're not. They're Slagles.
Oh, that's the family name. Now, you brought this wonderful picture. This is the way it was?
That was, oh, I thought you would like to see that. It was out of the Courier.
Yeah, Grants Pass, the way it was. But Medford is, Medford's where you folks spent all your time.
Well, in the last, from 71. Hugh lived there longer than I did before we left there, and then, because I had just gone there in 54.
So Hugh went to school in Ashland, and then...
He went to California for a few years, came back.
And what did Hugh do for all those years when you were married? And you were raising his 5 children?
Well, I had 4 more. Well, after the last of the kids were in high school, I decided I wanted to go back to work. And picked up the Medford paper, classifieds. And I'd been working as a nurse's aide, the last job I'd held, last paying job. And so there was an ad from one of the local nursing homes. And I went up and talked to them and went to work there. Stayed there for working in the Central Service for 6 years. And that was enough. And so I quit. We were building a house and went and helped finish up the house, and then went looking for another job and ended up working for Montgomery Ward.
Monkey Wards in Medford?
Yeah, and they closed the store. So, but they opened a catalog store. So I went there and worked for them for 6 years. And then I had to have emergency gallbladder surgery. And the store was sold, and the new owners took over while I was in the hospital, so I was out of the job. And when I went to go to work again, I worked for Harry and David for one Christmas season, and then...
I just wonder how many of the viewing audience have worked for Harry and David at least one season.
Well, that's all I did, but
I bet there's dozens.
Oh, hundreds.
Hundreds of people.
Sure. I know all kinds of people that have worked just periodically there. during the rush seasons.
Now you've brought these pictures, and we don't want to miss them. Who, what, when, and where?
Okay, Elvira Saltmarsh is the lady right there, the middle one in this picture.
Elvira. Excuse me, Elvira. And she is not really a relative of yours?
Oh yeah, she's a several times great aunt. But she's also my grandmother's foster mother. And Grandma married her nephew. So.
Ah, handy, handy. When the nephew comes, let's get acquainted. Now, why foster mother?
Because her father died. He lifted something too heavy and it ruptured an artery to his heart, and he lived for a year, but then he died. And there were 7 or 8 kids in the family, and her mom had to work. And Grandma was next to the youngest. And so, and the Saltmarsh children had been in this epidemic where most of them died, and the doctor told, we called him Grandpa Saltmarsh, told him he had to find some kids for her to raise.
Oh.
Or she'd go crazy. Because she lost 7 or 8 kids, several of them on the same days, or close to the same time.
Heartbreak.
Yep, so, and they all lived in Lebanon, and Grandma's family lived there in Lebanon. And so, anyway, somehow or another, he knew that she was having a hard time with these kids, and her husband had died. So he got Grandma as a foster child. He didn't adopt her, but she used the Saltmarsh name. Her name was Sims. But
oh man! Now,
and then his sister-in-law died in childbirth, so they didn't take the newborn. An aunt took her, but he took the toddler. I think Belle was 2 years old.
What do you do when there's not a welfare system? When there's not?
And there wasn't.
No. This is heartbreaking.
Well, and it happened to lots of people.
Yeah, my grandparents buried 2 and had a miscarriage in South America, and of course never got back to these graves.
Yeah.
But that was, we kept them for 100 years, kept the graves because it was important.
Yeah. Well, those gravestones are all with the Saltmarshes are all in Lebanon Historic.
They'll want to know these stories that you're telling me. Different towns have historic societies, and they just love to hear these old stories.
Well, and those communities do things with them. So
now you have a lot of envelopes here. This one is dated 1900.
Yeah.
Tiny little envelope. Have you read the letters?
Uh-huh.
What do they say?
Well, I can't remember which one you've got there. One of them is from my, let's see.
Dear sister.
Well, that one is from Grandma's, no.
What this says about church members?
Oh, this is a certificate of membership from the Methodist Episcopal Church in one location, and Grandma was someplace else.
Independence, Oregon.
And that's where her father is buried.
Oh, wait till they get this information up in Salem. This is wonderful stuff. What about this?
Well, that's another gravestone. Who's on it?
Now, it's a little worse for wear, or was it, do you think
it's that way now. These are the, I knew I needed my glasses.
Yep. It is.
Oh, this is Anna Green Lee. She is she was my twice great-grandmother. And her husband, Philander, is the one that is up in the mural on the building there in Canby. And she wrote a big account of the trip out.
Oh, she did.
Yeah, she did. She was 90-some years old when she actually wrote it, and for her children and grandchildren.
And now, did she? Have you seen the account?
I have copies of it, and I don't know where the original is.
It should be in a museum someplace,
well,
shouldn't it?
there's a little museum in Canby. It's the old train station.
And folks, when you get to Canby, plan on going on the ferry, right?
That's one of her sons her grandson it's named for, my grandfather's brother.
And his name is?
Millard Jerome Lee, MJ Lee. Nobody ever called him anything but MJ.
Well, you knew R.C., right? Martin, my father. Mm-hmm. Lots of people called him R.C., but some said Robert and some said Bob. And
right.
Nicknames are kind of, I'm Bernie.
Yeah.
You probably didn't even know I'm a Bernadette.
Yes, I did know.
Oh.
And I know what you called your auntie, too.
Oh, yes?
Her name was Ruth, but kids called her Fifi.
Right, because I could say Aunt and I could say Ruth, but put the two together and they came out as Fifi, and it stuck. She was a nurse at the Josephine General Hospital.
Yeah.
And spanked lots of us on the bottom, huh? You brought this old-time picture, and I just thank you so much for sharing this. What's the story?
The story is that at the time my father died in '73, that was one of his vehicles. He also had a Ford van. But my brother got this and drove it a little. And then his youngest son wanted to use it. He used it a while, took it to college with him. And then, about 3-4 years ago, he was thinking about having to get rid of it because his wife was fussing about having it there. And Cindy said, well, how much do you want for it? I'll buy it. And that's my daughter. And so they made a deal. He says, I'll give you a family discount.
Like the way I got my car was a family discount.
And so anyway, she has it now.
And it's still rolling?
Yeah.
Does it have a Martin Brothers?
No, it's not from Grants Pass.
Ah.
I wish it were, but it's not. It's a 49.
That is a beautiful, and it's been kept. Look at the polish. You can see the shine there.
She wanted to have it painted, but the guy that did some mechanical work on it said, no way, it's good enough, and he just polished it out.
Beautiful. I love restored cars. I just love them. Maybe if I'd have grown up in a different family, I'd love jewelry or something, but cars.
Jewelry doesn't do a thing for me.
What about this picture? What do you?
Okay, that is Independence, Oregon Cemetery, and that's where my grandmother's father is buried.
So you know
Albert Jasper Sims.
When I called her sister Ann, and Ann and I are kind of the same age, and I got a cute picture of Ann in school, but Ann said, no, you got to call Dorothy because she knows all this. And I don't remember, even though I'm younger, I just have never hooked into it. You've got all these letters. How is it that you happen to have so many? I mean, this is 1895. Maybe they were just writing down
and
family.
I think that's just a list that somebody wrote. And I don't know all of them. But
the paper is so delicate here.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, you lucky lady. The deaths, the births, the marriages. Oh, folks, I hope you'll do that for your grandkids.
Well, I hope they don't do what somebody did to that same aunt lady, this one. I have her Bible.
And?
My grandpa had it. My mom had it, and it came to me when Mom died. But I opened it up. First thing I wanted to look at was the registry of births and deaths and whatnot. It wasn't there.
Oh.
And I thought, well, all Bibles have that kind of space right in the middle someplace. And but it literally wasn't there. And the more I looked at it, I realized it had been very carefully cut out. And I came over and talked to my aunt about it and asked her if she knew anything about it. She said, I really don't, unless because of all the deaths of the children that she took it out, or took it out when she gave the Bible to my grandpa and grandma when they got married. That's when she gave it to them.
Oh.
And then when Grandpa Lee died, Mom got it. And
you being the eldest would then
it came to me. But in all this batch of paperwork that Ann just recently gave to Ted and Bonita, and they passed on to me, there was, and my daughter was with me when I was going through it. She just happened to be there. And she said, Mom, this looks like what ought to go in that big old Bible of yours. And I went and got the Bible, and we looked, and sure enough, it was.
Oh, the pages matched.
They matched. I had, when I thought I never would have the right ones, I went ahead and typed up what I thought should have been there in that Bible.
And how'd that jive with when you really saw?
Pretty close.
Now, you just mentioned Anne. Oh my goodness, if this isn't the wedding day, huh?
Yeah, it is.
Anne Hall.
And her daughter made her dress, and one of them, her second daughter, made the dress and made a really fancy cake.
And she has to use her cane, but I'm kind of glad that she put that in.
Yeah.
She met her husband-to-be when he came as a
home teacher or whatever they call them.
Yeah, that's great. Now, this is not Anne, this would be Anne's, no.
This is me in front of the mural that my great-grandfather is in.
Okay, now great-grandpa's name?
Great-great-grandfather.
His name is?
Philander Lee.
And this wall is where?
It's in downtown Canby.
They have beautiful painted walls.
Well, I don't know when this mural was done.
But you came to visit
I was there just last summer. I'd gone up to Ted's, and Bonita says, we got to go show you the mural downtown. And so...
Here's the little covered bridge.
Yeah.
I'm sure there must have been many. We're talking what river this ferry crosses, Willamette?
Yeah.
And the Willamette is very... historically, it was truly significant, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. It was a very important part of the commerce in the early days.
You could navigate from Portland up the river, and probably down the river. Logs were probably the best.
I don't know too much about the Willamette.
Yeah.
Those little girls are my great-grands.
Oh, great. And proud of them.
Well, yeah, I haven't seen them. I've seen this one when he was newborn. Now he's 7 years old, but...
Oh, and they live far...
Alaska.
Okay,
Fairbanks.
well, maybe you're not going to go up there very soon. These are so...
I went up when Dylan was a baby.
Oh, so Dylan, and what's her name?
Well, one of them is Sierra, one of them is Savannah, one of them is Isabel.
Oh, you mean that part of the family is having plenty more children, too?
Well, those 3 granddaughters up there are doing their part.
When I saw this one picture of you and your husband at a party, and it looked like you had had a major reunion here.
Well, actually, that's when my son Doug was married over at Shore Acres 17 years ago.
Shore Acres?
Oh, it was beautiful. In February, of all things.
Oh, it takes guts to have a wedding
Well,
in the
you're
coast.
really gambling on the weather, but anyway, that's where they got married. And this is just part of our bunch, but his best man was... This one right here is one of our grandsons, and his wife is there, and their 3 little kids. And And
So you and Hugh really have quite a family. Have you counted up how many?
well, there's 28 grandchildren, and I've forgotten how many great-grands, but it's up 30 plus.
Now, do you make quilts for every one of these?
The new babies, I do.
Oh, my hat's off to you, Grandma.
First babies.
Oh, first babies.
Yeah.
Industrious woman, I'll tell you.
I haven't done any for, now Cindy's youngest is having her baby in about a month, so, and I haven't made her a quilt yet. But I will.
Now, that is your mother?
That's me,
Oh, that's you.
and my daughter's first.
See, I keep forgetting that you have brown hair.
Yeah, it was almost black.
The Halls. You know, you have brought so many things. I think it would take us a year and a day to go through all
and it's just a drop in the bucket of what I have.
Treasures, and you've kept them so nicely.
Well, a lot of them I didn't have until recently.
Thank you, Anne, or thank you, whoever has kept track.
Well, actually, the ones that Anne passed on are ones that my Aunt Leola had.
Well, that's how we keep history alive.
Yeah, and she never married, so
It came down to you.
eventually, yeah.
And who is that one?
That's me.
That's the baby. Only you're the eldest, so you're the firstborn.
Yeah.
And your dad's name?
Floyd.
Floyd Hall. And your mother?
Zella Lee.
Zella, and her last name is Lee.
That's right. Grandpa Lee said that girls didn't need middle names.
Oh,
Because? They would use their maiden names when they got married.
Oh.
For middle names, but Grandma gave Mom and her younger sister Mildred middle names after the fact, a year or two or three. The other ones, the older two girls, didn't have any
And that's why it's now Bernie Martin Beck, because I do get a little. I thank you so much, Dorothy, for being my guest.
Oh, it's
and
fun.
I thank you all for tuning in and walking history with us. This is way back to the
1847, the earliest I know.
I'm Bernie Martin Beck saying bye for now.